In silence, where no cry is heard, some of the most profound human decisions are made. Decisions that reveal not only the soul of a person, but the true face of an entire society. One of these decisions is suicide. We often imagine suicide as something personal, an inner pain, a private wound, a failure of an individual. But, what if that's only half of the truth? What if behind every personal choice, there is a hidden trace of society, its structures, its broken ties, its silent failures? Today, we step into one of the most important and unsettling works of the late 19th century, a book that revealed an uncomfortable reality, that suicide is not only a psychological event, it is a social fact. Suicide by Émile Durkheim is not just a study of numbers. It's not just a theory in sociology. It's a mirror in which a society is forced to see itself, the reflection it often runs away from. In this video, we're not just reviewing a book. We are opening a door to a question that runs deep into the human condition: why do people become lonely, among others? And why does that loneliness sometimes reach the edge of death? This is not just a question of the past. It lives, breathes, and spreads, in the heart of our modern world. To truly understand the depth of suicide, we must first understand the man who wrote it. Émile Durkheim wasn't just a theorist. He was one of the founders of modern sociology, a thinker who changed the way we look at society itself. Émile Durkheim was born on April 15, 1858, in a small town called Épinal in eastern France. He came from a traditional Jewish family. His father, grandfather, and several generations before him were rabbis, religious leaders. As a child, it was expected that he would follow the same path. But Durkheim chose a different one, a path of reason, science, and a search for the social roots of human life. He studied at École Normale Supérieure in Paris, one of the most prestigious institutions in France. There, he was deeply influenced by the rational and positivist philosophy of the 19th century. But he also recognized something crucial: human beings cannot be fully explained by individual psychology or abstract philosophy alone. Society itself has its own reality, something larger than the sum of individuals. After graduating, Durkheim became a professor. He established the first department of sociology at the University of Bordeaux. Later, he moved to the University of Paris, where he played a key role in making sociology an official academic discipline in France. Some of his major works include The Division of Labor in Society, where he explains how modern societies depend on specialization and interdependence to create new forms of social bonds. The Rules of Sociological Method, where he defines his scientific approach and introduces the key concept of social facts. The Elementary Forms of Religious Life, an analysis of the social roots of religion and its power to build collective solidarity. And of course, Suicide, his most influential and groundbreaking work. Durkheim was known as a disciplined, thoughtful, and somewhat reserved man. Although not directly involved in politics, his intellectual influence shaped the social sciences in France and across Europe. His personal life was marked by tragedy when his son was killed during World War I, a loss from which he never fully recovered. He died in 1917, at the age of 59. But his legacy lived on. Durkheim gave sociology its backbone, a scientific way to study society, not just individuals. He built a bridge between personal experience and collective structures, and that bridge still stands today. This is why suicide remains more than just a historical text, it's a living idea, a foundation. In fact, more than a century later, this book is still taught in universities around the world. And that's exactly why what comes next matters. This conversation is not a solution to suicide, and it is absolutely not an attempt to normalize it. It is the opposite. It is about understanding the reality of this phenomenon from a wider and deeper perspective, beyond the clichés and surface-level narratives. Because sometimes, a different way of seeing can change the path of a decision, and changing that path can save a life. When we talk about suicide, we often see it as something purely personal, a silent, inner decision made by one person. But Durkheim looked at it from a completely different angle. He asked a simple but powerful question: if suicide is purely individual, why do we see clear and repetitive patterns in different groups and periods of time? Why are the rates higher in some communities and lower in others? Durkheim's conclusion was striking: something outside the individual is at work. He called this the social structure, an invisible network of values, ties, pressures, and expectations that shape our lives without us always noticing. For him, suicide is a social fact, a force beyond individual will that influences human behavior. Durkheim didn't just theorize. He gathered data, compared patterns, and searched for invisible forces behind visible numbers. His approach had 3 steps. Step 1, clear definition. He separated suicide from other forms of death to study it precisely. Step 2, systematic comparison. He looked at different religious groups, marital status, professions, the military and civilian life, and economic booms and recessions. Step 3, social explanation. He showed that behind differences in numbers lie different social structures and degrees of belonging. What matters here is that he didn't moralize, didn't judge. He simply let the facts speak. To explain these patterns, Durkheim introduced 2 key axes: integration, how much does an individual feel connected to the group? How strong is their sense of belonging? Regulation, how much structure and predictability does the social world provide? Are there clear, stable rules or constant instability? In simple words, society can be both a shelter and a prison. When integration or regulation becomes too weak or too strong, the risk of suicide grows. When social bonds are weak, people feel isolated, detached, and alone. They can no longer find meaning in belonging to something larger. When the we dies, the I falls. Altruistic suicide occurs when individuals are absorbed completely by the group, ceasing to belong to themselves. Their worth is measured only through their sacrifice for the collective. When the individual becomes just an instrument, life loses its personal meaning. In times of crisis, economic, political, or moral, the old rules collapse, and new ones haven't yet formed. People lose orientation. Expectations rise without limits. Freedom without structure becomes chaos. Limitless desires can suffocate the soul. Fatalistic suicide arises when rules are too rigid and the future is completely blocked. In such circumstances, hope fades and oppression replaces possibility. When the future is sealed, life becomes small. Durkheim revealed something crucial: stable family ties, religious belonging, and clear social structures can act as protective factors. Economic crises, both sudden booms and collapses, increase suicide rates because they disrupt stability and meaning. Strict institutions like the military have their own patterns of risk. The real cause isn't money or status, it's the quality of connection and the clarity of rules that shape the human experience. I want to share something I personally find powerful in this book. Durkheim, without using emotional language, tells us something deeply human: when someone breaks, it's not just their story. It's the echo of a crack in the collective. This isn't about statistics anymore. It's about what happens when meaning disappears, not just for one person, but around them. In our digital age, it may look like we're more connected than ever. But beneath the surface, many people feel more alone than at any time before. Why? Because connection is not belonging. Because algorithms are not communities. And because many of the old social structures that gave life direction have faded or fractured. Durkheim's theory isn't just history, it's a lens for understanding our world right now. Now that we've understood the structure of Durkheim's theory, the real question begins: how can we rebuild meaning and connection without losing our individuality? How can we create a society where the weak doesn't crush the I, but gives it strength? In the next section, we'll explore these questions from our own perspective, not just through theory, but through lived experience and reflection. Now that we've explored Durkheim's structure and ideas, it's time to step closer to the heart of the matter. The book Suicide is not just a historical analysis. It's a mirror, and if we dare to look into it, we might see not only society, but ourselves. Society isn't just something out there. It breathes inside us, in our choices, in our silence, in the invisible weight of our days. When those bonds around us break, meaning doesn't disappear with a loud noise. It fades quietly, from within. We, as human beings, are built on connections, to family, to friends, to shared beliefs, to a future we haven't reached yet but still believe in. When those connections are torn apart, the world doesn't just turn cold. It loses its meaning. And that is exactly the moment Durkheim warned us about. But his warning isn't trapped in the past. Today, we live in a world that confuses connection with belonging. Thousands of friends online can exist, and yet not one person to truly talk to. The noise of society grows louder, but beneath the surface, so many feel rootless, lost in a fast world with shallow ties and blurry rules. In such a world, the real struggle isn't only with external problems. It's a fight against the silent void, the feeling that one's presence doesn't matter and one's absence wouldn't change a thing. But here's the truth, even in this very moment, meaning can be rebuilt. Not through noise, not through performance, but through real bonds, the kind that are made by seeing and being seen. No theory, not even Durkheim's, can save a life on its own. But understanding can make the darkness visible. And seeing the darkness is the first step toward building light. Meaning isn't something we find. It's something we build. And every time one person reaches out to another in the dark, a new meaning is born. In this video, we didn't just talk about a book. We looked into a mirror, one that was built more than a century ago, yet still reflects something painfully real today. Suicide is not just about death. It's about connection. About hope, the kind of hope that, when it breaks, leaves behind a deep and silent emptiness. Durkheim showed us that many forms of pain are not only personal, they are collective. And if pain can grow from broken social bonds, then healing, too, can grow from rebuilding them. We are not alone. And if we learn to reconnect, darkness does not have to be the last word. If this video gave you something to think about, don't just scroll away. Sit with the idea. Think about the bonds that give meaning to your life. About the quiet moments of belonging that can save someone. No society collapses in silence. The signs always speak before the fall. All we need is to listen. Before we end, I want to share with you the most powerful and meaningful lines I've found in Durkheim's Suicide. Not as distant academic quotes, but as words that still speak to us, more than a century later. Suicide is not an individual act. It is a social fact. Its roots lie not only in the mind of a person, but in the soil of society. Society exists outside of us, shaping us even when we resist it. When bonds weaken, the individual is left adrift, and freedom without meaning becomes a form of abandonment. It is society that gives weight and meaning to life. When that meaning collapses, existence loses its gravity. Relentless order suffocates hope. Endless disorder disorients the soul. Meaning lives in balance. No collapse comes without signs. Before every fall, the warning appears in silence. When society turns away, loneliness becomes death. But when society reaches out, that same loneliness can return to life.